I slept with a stranger while drunk on a work trip. My husband says he'll never divorce me because of our business and children. His family calls me a snake, and his sister told me that I don't deserve kids. Before watching the video, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'd also really appreciate a like and a subscribe. The most interesting comment will be included in the next videos. Thank you to each and every one of you. Enjoy watching. I'm Emily, 32 years old, female, and I don't think I've ever felt smaller in my life than the night I cracked and told my husband the truth. It started a year ago on a work trip to Denver. It was one of those corporate conferences where everyone's pretending to network, but really just wants to drink free cocktails and complain about their bosses. I'm not a big drinker, but that night I let myself get swept up. Shots, champagne, beer, whatever was put in my hand. I barely remember leaving the bar, but I do remember waking up in a stranger's hotel room. His name might have been Adam or maybe Alex, doesn't matter. I left before he woke up and I buried it so deep I convinced myself it was just some ugly, isolated mistake. The guilt was like this constant low buzz in my chest. At first I managed it, smiling through dinners, kissing my husband, Mark, 34 male, pretending nothing happened. Mark and I had been married 5 years. Built the business together from scratch. He's the kind of man who believes in routine, in loyalty, in steady ground. And me? I shattered it, and he had no idea. I thought I could carry it forever. I really did. Until last month when we were lying in bed and he looked at me with this calm, sleepy smile and said, "I love that we can fully trust each other. That's the best part of us." That sentence broke me, like he had just unknowingly twisted a knife straight into the lie I'd been living. I started shaking so hard I had to sit up. Mark thought I was sick, but then the words just fell out. "I cheated on you." The silence after that was worse than any yelling. He didn't scream, didn't throw things. He just stared at me like he was cataloging a stranger's face. Then he got up, walked into the kitchen, and poured himself a glass of water. He stood there sipping like the world hadn't just split in half. When he finally spoke, it wasn't what I expected. He said, "I'll never divorce you. Not because of you, because of our business. Too much is tied up together. But don't think for a second this house is the same anymore." And he meant it. He still kisses me on the forehead in front of clients, still calls me hon when we're negotiating contracts. But behind closed doors, ice, bedside table between us like a canyon. His family found out within a week. I don't know if he told them or if they guessed, but they look at me like I'm radioactive. His mom won't speak to me directly. His sister Jenna, 28 female, cornered me in the parking lot after Sunday dinner and said, "You don't deserve kids. Don't even think about bringing one into this family." I stood there with my hands full of leftovers I didn't even want, while she spat those words like venom, and I couldn't even defend myself, because maybe she's right. Maybe I don't deserve kids, maybe I don't deserve Mark, but I still wake up next to him every morning, still pretend we're okay when we're not, and every day feels like waiting for the other shoe to drop. The days after my confession felt like I was living in a staged house. Everything looked the same. Our business meetings, our shared dinners, our morning routines, but none of it felt real. Mark was polite, careful even, but the warmth was gone. I used to catch him looking at me with softness. Now his eyes were just flat. We'd built everything together. Our business wasn't just a job. It was our baby. Mark was the numbers guy, spreadsheets and forecasts, while I handled clients, presentations, networking. We were unstoppable as a team, and he knew it. That's why he told me straight out, I'll never divorce you. You're too good for the business, but don't think this is love anymore. And then came his family. God, his family. It started with his mom. Linda, 58, female, has always been a little frosty with me, but after Mark told her, she turned to ice. At Sunday dinner, she passed the potatoes around the table like I wasn't even sitting there. Wouldn't meet my eyes. When I tried to speak, she redirected conversation to someone else like I was air. I felt like I was fading right out of my own marriage. But Jenna didn't do subtle, and she's Mark's younger sister, 28, with a talent for cruelty disguised as honesty. She cornered me outside after dinner, leaning against my car like she owned it. "You don't deserve kids," she said, her voice low but sharp enough to cut. "You already proved you can't be trusted with a marriage. Don't bring a child into this family and ruin them too." It was the first time I felt physically sick from words alone. I stood there holding the stupid casserole dish Linda had shoved at me, my hands shaking so hard I thought I'd drop it. I wanted to scream to defend myself, but the truth was lodged in my throat. I just got in the car and drove away, casserole rattling in the back seat like an accusation. Mark didn't say anything when I told him. He didn't defend me, didn't call Jenna out. He just sat at the kitchen counter scrolling through his phone and said, "You can't control what people think. Actions have consequences." That's when it really hit me. He wasn't just punishing me quietly. He was letting his family do the dirty work. He knew they'd treat me like a snake, and he wasn't going to stop them. At night, when I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I thought about that stranger in the hotel room. I couldn't even remember his face anymore. One blurry, drunken mistake. And now, it was defining every second of my life. But here's the thing. Part of me started to get angry. Not just at myself, but at Mark, at Jenna, at the whole family circus. Yes, I messed up. I admitted it. I faced it. But the way they treated me? Like I was less than human? Like one night had erased 5 years of marriage and every good thing I'd done? That anger was small at first. A spark. But it was growing. And I didn't know it yet. But it was going to lead me somewhere dark. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere satisfying. It didn't stop at Jenna's parking lot ambush. If anything, that was just the opening shot. The following week, I showed up to a client dinner with Mark. These dinners were always our thing. We played off each other perfectly. I'd charm and smooth over while he dropped figures and made deals land. But that night, the second we walked in, I could feel something shift. The client's wife, who just so happened to be friends with Jenna, barely shook my hand. And halfway through the appetizer, she leaned across the table with this syrupy smile and said, "It must be nice to have a husband who can really trust you, Emily. That's so rare these days." I froze. Mark didn't flinch. He just sipped his wine like nothing had been said. The rest of the night, I felt like my skin was crawling. That's when I realized Jenna had started talking. Not just to the family, to anyone who would listen. A few days later, Linda made her move. She came by our office, something she never does, and asked me to step into the hallway. I thought maybe she wanted to hash things out, woman to woman. Instead, she leaned in close, her perfume suffocating, and whispered, "You've embarrassed my son. You've embarrassed this family. If you were a decent person, you'd leave quietly and give him the business. But you're selfish, I can see it in your eyes." I wanted to scream that I built half of this company, that I'd worked side by side with Mark through late nights and early mornings. But Linda wasn't there for reason. She was there to wound, and she succeeded. The next blow came online. Jenna posted one of those cryptic Facebook rants, the kind where she didn't name names, but everyone knew who it was about. Some women don't deserve to be mothers. Some women poison everything they touch. Family snakes are the worst snakes of all. It had 36 comments from friends and cousins piling on little digital pitchforks. I sat there scrolling, heart racing, reading strangers calling me trash and homewrecker like they knew me. And through it all, Mark said nothing. At night we shared the same bed, but it felt like sleeping next to a wall. Once I finally broke and asked, "Are you really okay with them treating me like this?" He turned his head, looked at me with those flat eyes, and said, "You earned it." That night I couldn't stop staring at the framed photo on our dresser, our wedding picture. His hand on my back, both of us laughing mid-step, looking like we believed in forever. I took it down, sat on the edge of the bed, and just held it. The glass cracked under my grip before I realized how tightly I was clutching it. Tiny shards cut into my palm. I didn't even feel the sting, just the hollow ache in my chest. The guilt was still there, always humming. But now, layered on top of it, something else was growing stronger. Rage. Not just at myself anymore, but at how easy it was for them to turn me into a villain. I wasn't sure yet what I was going to do. But I knew one thing. If they wanted a snake, maybe I could be one. It got physical sooner than I thought. A week after Jenna's little Facebook crusade, I walked out to my car after a grocery run and froze. Someone had keyed the entire driver's side. Deep, jagged scratches running from the headlight to the tail light, and written into the metal clear as day, "Snake." I didn't need a detective to know who did it. Jenna has always had this mean streak. She once slashed her own ex's tires because he didn't text her back in under an hour. And the word choice? That was hers. She called me a snake to my face. I drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel, every glance in the rearview mirror catching that word carved to the metal like a brand. When I pulled into the driveway, Mark was outside watering the lawn. He saw the car, saw my face, and just set the hose down. I thought for 1 second he'd be angry on my behalf. But no. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Actions have consequences, Emily. Don't act surprised when people call you what you are." That broke something in me. I didn't even argue. I just went inside, shut the bathroom door, and slid down to the floor with my head in my hands. The worst part wasn't the scratches or even the humiliation. It was realizing that Mark wasn't going to protect me. Not from Jenna, not from Linda, not from anyone. 2 nights later, it escalated again. I woke up at 2 a.m. to pounding on our front door. At first, I thought it was some drunk stranger, but when I peered through the peephole, it was Jenna. Her mascara was smeared, her voice already hoarse from screaming. She was yelling for Mark, shouting about how I'd ruined everything. I begged him not to open the door, but he did. The second she saw me behind him, she lunged. Mark held her back, but she was flailing, spitting venom. "You'll never be part of this family again. You'll never be a mother. You're a mistake that never should have happened." Her nails caught my arm as she reached, leaving a red welt that burned long after she stormed off. When the door finally slammed shut, I stood there shaking, half expecting Mark to comfort me, to tell me she was out of line. Instead, he just sighed like he was exhausted and muttered, "You shouldn't provoke her." I didn't even know what to say anymore. I went upstairs, crawled into bed alone, and stared at the ceiling until the morning light made the room look less like a cage. By then, the guilt I'd been drowning in was almost gone. It had been replaced with something hotter, sharper. I knew I'd made a mistake with that stranger in Denver. But what his family was doing, that wasn't about my mistake anymore. That was about power, about control, and about their need to see me broken. That night, lying there in the dark. I decided I wasn't going to break. I was going to bite back. Update. So, wow. I didn't expect my last post to blow up like it did. I read through so many of your comments. Some of you roasted me. Some of you told me I was brave for confessing. And some of you said I should burn the whole house down. Tempting, not gonna lie. A few people even DM'd me with stories of going through similar messes. And I cried reading those. Thank you. To the ones who said I deserve whatever's coming. Yeah, maybe I do. I cheated. I own that. But the past few weeks have shown me something ugly. Mark and his family don't want justice. They want blood. And they want me crawling? Well, I'm done crawling. Here's what happened since my last post. After Jenna keyed my car and then tried to claw me at our front door, something in me shifted. I looked at the scratches on my car every morning before leaving for work, and instead of shame, I started feeling clarity. If they saw me as a snake, fine. I'd show them how snakes survive. The opportunity came faster than I expected. Mark's parents host this annual fundraiser for a local children's charity. It's their pride and joy. The one night they get to parade around as the perfect family. Everyone shows up. Clients, investors, church folks, neighbors. It's basically their version of the Oscars. I decided that night would be mine. I didn't plan to scream or flip tables. That would just prove Jenna right about me being unstable. No, I wanted quiet surgical revenge. Something they couldn't scrub off. So when it was my turn to take the mic, because yes, Linda always insists we, the business couple, say a few words about community values, I smiled. I thanked everyone for supporting the charity. I talked about trust, about how children deserve honesty, love, and stability. Then I paused, looked right at Mark, and said, and I think it's important to remind ourselves that family isn't about perfection. It's about owning mistakes, forgiving when we can, and protecting the ones who are vulnerable, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. The room went silent. Everyone knew. I didn't spell it out, but I didn't need to. In that moment, the whispers turned on them. Not me. Them. Because the people in that room didn't hear a cheating wife. They heard a woman standing in front of her husband's family, shaking but unbroken, calling out the cruelty they'd tried to bury. Jenna stormed out mid-speech, heels clicking like gunshots. Linda's face went rigid, a frozen mask of fury. Mark just sat there, jaw tight, eyes darting like he couldn't control the narrative anymore. Afterward, people came up to me, hugged me, whispered that I was strong, that they'd heard rumors, but seeing me stand there, vulnerable and still fighting, changed everything. For the first time in months, I felt power shift. They wanted me erased. Instead, I just carved myself into the story publicly where they couldn't silence me. And the best part? I wasn't finished. Update 2. I've read every comment. Some of you told me to leave. Some of you told me to rot. A weird handful sent recipes. The ones that shifted me were the pragmatic DMs. Record everything. Get screenshots. If she escalates, call the cops and press charges. Document the damage. Thank you. I was proud of myself for standing up at the fundraiser, but a handful of you made me plan like someone who actually wanted to win, not just feel vindicated for 5 minutes. So I did the boring adult things. I started logging every incident, saved every text, set my phone to record in weird pockets of places Jenna might try something, and moved the expensive family photo off the mantle and into a drawer. Symbolic, yes. Also practical. The escalation came faster and uglier than I expected. 2 nights after the fundraiser, I was working late in the office, finalizing a proposal that could land us the biggest client we've chased this year. The overhead lights hummed. The city outside looked soft and harmless. I had my headphones on and my coffee cooling in a chipped mug Mark gave me on our 3rd anniversary. The glass on my laptop blinked with a half-typed sentence when someone ripped the front door open. It was Jenna. She barreled through like a hurricane in heels, mascara streaked, hair loose, and the sane part of my brain catalogued every detail. The smell of cheap perfume, the way her hand moved like it wanted to strike. The unstable part of my brain did the other thing. It flicked through every time she'd keyed my car, every smear of venomous comment, every Facebook pile-on. I hit record on my phone with my knee under the desk, because I had listened to you. She didn't whisper. She screamed. She accused me of stealing their life, spat about children I shouldn't have, and grabbed a framed client award off the wall and hurled it at the glass conference table. The award shattered. Glass rained like cheap confetti. Papers flew. A laptop took a hit and died with a soft, pathetic ping. The office security cam, thank God for that, caught every second, including the way she shoved me when I stepped in front of the trophy. My arm throbbed from where her nails scored my forearm. Mark came running. He didn't stand in front of me. He stood between us, mouth open like he couldn't breathe. Jenna lunged again. He caught her, and she clawed at him, hysterical. "You love that she can be honest," she screamed at him, twisting like a drowning animal. "You love her truth until it's your life." Neighbors called the cops. Someone in the office, a junior associate I'd mentored, got my phone from under the desk because I was shaking too hard, and pushed the security footage to my cloud with hands that didn't stop trembling. Jenna left in an ambulance of anger, slamming doors, vowing everyone that I'd pay. The footage changed everything. I posted a short clip. Not the traumatic center of it, but the clear parts. The keyed car, the snake close-up, Jenna's face as she smashed our award, the shove. I captioned it with facts, my voice steady, dates, police report number, I will not be stalked. I also sent the full footage, unedited, directly to Linda, to the charity board, and to our top 3 clients with a single line. This is what I'm dealing with. I am not a liar. This is documented. The fallout was cleaner than I dared hope. The charity suspended its family photo feature until they could sort things out. Clients called, not to cancel, but to ask if I was okay and to pass along offers to help with cleanup and security. The woman from the fundraiser who'd hugged me. She showed up at the office with pizza and a legal referral. Someone from Mark's church group sent a message asking if I wanted them to come to court as character witnesses. And Mark? He finally said something public. Not at dinner, not in the car where it would have been small and private. He emailed the board. We condemn violence and harassment. We are cooperating fully with authorities. It wasn't an apology to me. It wasn't, I was wrong, but it was public. He put his name next to mine where it mattered to the business. Jenna is now in the local newspapers for a completely different reason than she intended. A violent outburst at a small business with witnesses. The police told me this morning they have her on a trespassing and harassment complaint, and there's a pending restraining order. Her posts are down. Either her friends finally realized what she'd done, or the platform flagged the violence. I don't celebrate that part of it. I cried over the cracked award. I dangled anesthetic sympathy for Jenna. She clearly needs help, but I also sat in my office with the broken laptop on my knees and the framed wedding photo, which I'd put back on the desk because it felt like a dare now. And I felt something that wasn't shame. It was a cold, careful satisfaction. Some of you said I should have called the cops sooner. You were right. Some of you said nothing would change and I get crushed. You were wrong. And a few of you told me to get a lawyer. I did. The next step is court. And I'm tired in a way that's different now. Tired but resolute. They didn't stop at smashing a ward and slashing my car. Jenna's next move was the kind of thing that keeps nights long and coffee cold. An attack that hit where Mark and I were most vulnerable. Our business. 2 days after the police filed the trespassing and harassment complaint, an email went out to half our client list. The subject line, urgent, possible misbilling. Our company name. Attached was a PDF of an invoice. Our logo, our bank details, line items for Phantom Consulting, a transfer request for $20,000. The wording was professional. The footer had a not quite right font, and the account number was a tiny digit off from ours. It was the sort of thing a panicked CFO would act on without calling. I knew right away it was forged because I'd created the invoice template 2 years ago and I could see the lazy copy edits. But a seed of doubt had been planted in client inboxes, and doubt eats trust alive. My phone rang off the hook. Clients wanted answers. Our CFO, Jenna had never even met him, texted me a question mark. The junior associate who'd saved the security footage sent a link to a smear post Jenna had started circulating on Slack and Instagram. Accusations about embezzlement, screenshots of private chats ripped out of context. People tagged their friends. A vendor called to say a liaison at one of our biggest prospects had hung up mid-call whispering something about ethical concerns. I called Mark. He picked up like the world hadn't already tilted. "We'll handle it," he said. Calm, clipped, the tone of a man used to spreadsheet solving everything. He didn't ask if I wanted to go to the police. He didn't ask if I was scared. He blocked numbers and forwarded copies to our lawyer. Actions, not words. But Jenna escalated physically while we were mopping up reputational blood. Someone pumped our office parking lot tires full of nails one night. The janitor found trash strewn through the lobby the next morning, printed copies of that forged invoice taped to the reception desk, coffee poured over a client folder. Our marquee, a metal sign with our name, was dented, a gouge across the script like a sneer. Security footage showed a hoodie that stopped at the same corner where Jenna's car had been seen the night she keyed mine. She was technically barred from our property, so every step she took past that line was a legal landmine. It was also proof. Someone sent an anonymous package to the house. A Polaroid of me, an old wedding shot, torn in half, glued to a note, "We know." My stomach turned, my hands trembled. The photo felt like a prophecy. Linda called that night, not to ask if I was okay, but to hiss, "You brought this on us." Her voice had that cold clarity. No tenderness left, only accusation. Mark listened in silence. He didn't defend me. He logged the call, he added it to the file. Procedure. I slept once that week in short gulps because I was making lists. Evidence we had. Witnesses we could call. A timeline with timestamps. The lawyer had us hire a forensic accountant to authenticate the invoices. The IT team dug into email headers and traced the forged file's origin to a burner laptop that pinged from Jenna's cousin's Wi-Fi. It read like a conspiracy. Even as it unfolded, Jenna had friends. And friends make scary friends. The worst part was the whisper campaign at home. A neighbor stopped by concerned and asked sympathetically if Mark knew everything. The baker who supplied our morning office croissants suddenly couldn't deliver because people were talking. Small erasures one after another until a life looks like it never existed. And then Mark, finally undeniably, took a stand in a way that mattered to the business. He opened the board meeting by presenting the security footage, the IT report, the accountant's findings, and he said, with a voice I had only heard when he was furious at a spreadsheet, "These actions are criminal. We will pursue them." He read names out loud. Jenna's name landed in the room like a thunderclap, but family is stubborn. Linda and a handful of cousins wrote us off in group texts I later screenshot. "You broke them," they wrote. "You ruined everything." Mark's signature on the corporate statement kept our clients. His silence at home kept the cold between us. He stood with me on paper, not at the sink when I cried. He defended the company, not the woman he married. Jenna's last move before the lawyer filed the restraining order was the ugliest. She tried to poison a client meeting by slipping a memo to a prospect claiming our internal turmoil made us untrustworthy for an upcoming contract worth 6 figures. The prospect called. I answered. I begged. I sent the board the audio where I explained the fraud and the police report number. They believed me. The prospect still paused, but their legal team wanted a vetted invoice trail, which we had thanks to the accountant, so the court date is set. The restraining order is pending. Jenna's online posts are full of conspiracy theories about me, about Mark, about the business. Wild, unhinged stuff that looks insane when you read it sober. And yet the damage was real. Wasted hours, sleepless employees, a dented sign, and the taste of metal in my mouth every time I saw my own wedding photo taped to a threatening note. I feel like I'm standing at the edge of a cliff. Papers, reports, and police stamps in my hands. I've got evidence now. I've documented everything. I can point to where Jenna crossed each line. But the part that keeps me awake is simpler and more dangerous. Mark. He stood up for the company in front of clients and the board, but at home he still treats me like the thing that happened defines my entire life. He signed our name to statements. He didn't wrap his arms around me and say, "I'm sorry." That silence is a wound that matters. Tomorrow is court. Jenna will be there, hair done, probably theatrical. Linda will send someone. I'll bring every file, every email, every recording, and the cracked wedding photo in a manila envelope because some part of me needs to put it where it belongs. Evidence. The morning of the court date, my stomach was coiled so tight I thought I might throw up in the parking lot. Mark didn't touch my hand. He carried the evidence folder like it was another quarterly report, not the scraps of our life ripped apart and documented. We walked in together, but not together. Two people bound by a company logo and a marriage license, not love. Jenna was already there. Hair ironed flat, lipstick too red, sitting like she was about to accept an award. Linda sat behind her, arms crossed, glaring at me like she was willing me out of existence. When Jenna saw me, she smiled, slow, deliberate, like a cat stretching before it pounces. My skin prickled. The hearing wasn't long. Our lawyer presented the forged invoices, the IT trail back to Jenna's cousin's Wi-Fi, the security footage, the smashed plaques, the vandalized car. Jenna's lawyer tried to argue misunderstanding, but the judge didn't buy it. Temporary restraining order granted. Jenna shrieked like someone had branded her. She lunged up, pointed straight at me. "You ruined my family! You took him from me!" The bailiff had to steady her. Linda cried out, "Snake!" loud enough that half the room jumped. When we left, someone had keyed the words "whore" into the side of my car, fresh, still flaking metal. I stared at it numb until Mark muttered, "We'll fix it." Not "Are you okay?" Not "I'm sorry," just logistics. He drove us home in silence, my reflection in the cracked window looking like someone else entirely. That night I reached my limit. I pulled the wedding photos, the same one Jenna had torn in half in that Polaroid, off the wall. I set it on the counter and whispered to myself, "You don't get to own me anymore." Then I smashed the glass with the hammer we kept under the sink. The crack echoed through the house. Mark didn't come running, he didn't even ask. I swept it up myself, hands shaking, blood on my fingertip from a shard. But here's the revenge, the part no one saw coming. Jenna wanted to poison the business. Fine. I leaked every single one of her fake invoices, her emails, the security footage, and her meltdown in court to her own employer, sent anonymously. HR opened an investigation. Within a week, Jenna was let go. A month later, her landlord evicted her for safety concerns. I didn't need to slash her tires. Her own fire burned her life down. Linda tried to rally family against me, but word spread about Jenna's firing and the court order. Suddenly, her threat sounded less like righteous fury and more like delusion. I didn't have to scream my innocence. Jenna's chaos did the work for me. The business survived. Our biggest client renewed. Mark and I still share an office, still sign things together. At home, we're strangers. He won't divorce me for the company, but he won't forgive me either. We orbit each other in silence, two ghosts keeping the lights on. Sometimes I look at him and wonder if staying is just another form of punishment for both of us. But when I sleep finally, it's not Jenna's face I see. It's mine, holding the hammer, glass shattering, reclaiming something that was mine all along. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and like it. You can also watch more shocking stories in the playlist.